Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers, Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Lager Counseling Services. This is a special type of a podcast that you have heard me do before. And this podcast is a therapeutic psychological session. As you know, as my listener, that I am a therapist, marriage counselor, drug and alcohol counselor, and I have been for over 30 years. And I run counseling centers. And my dear, precious guest, Karen, is here today to not only seek help for herself, but also to share the therapeutic experience with you so you understand what that is all about. And one of the things about listening to a podcast or watching a podcast with someone else being vulnerable and allowing me to walk alongside them and assist them in seeing things about themselves that maybe they wouldn't see on their own, helping them see their blind spots and just to know themselves further. The thing about that is that when we do that, when we observe that, we're actually doing it ourselves. So what you can expect from today is the parts that Karen shares, her vulnerable parts will resonate with your vulnerable parts. If Karen shares shame, it'll resonate with any shame within your body if you allow it. When Karen shares discouragement or fear in relationships, it will resonate with yours. So what I do ask is that you relate to the feeling and not the fact, not the story around it, because the story around our emotional, cognitive, and spiritual and belief systems has very little to do with what's really happening. So try to listen on a deeper level. And that is what therapy is about. Usually most people are working on external things to solve internal problems. We do not do that here. I hear the external situation and I hone in on the internal experience in order for a person. There's a lot of noise around us and we can miss ourselves in the midst of that. Even if we're smart, deep, like Karen is. She's a person who does personal development. She's a business owner, a mom, a wife, a woman who helps other women. She's an entrepreneur. And what can happen to myself and Karen is that with all the noise around us, as we help other people, it can create blind spots and kind of like white noise that can limit our ability to actually find ourselves within that context. So I'd like you to take this as an opportunity to do that for yourself. Okay? So without any further explanation, we're just going to go. So Karen, I just want to welcome you. I want to thank you so much. I want to honor you for being so willing to share who you are and what's happening in your life and be vulnerable. I know that this is quite a brave move on your end, don't you think?
Well, yeah, my palms are sweating. So
of course they are. Of course.
I definitely can sense the vulnerability needed on this platform for mostly in a selfish way for myself, because I've followed you for a while now and I'm blessed to have this opportunity. So I don't really want to let it pass me by without getting the help I really need right now.
So now the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is I'm going to illuminate a word that you used. Okay. Because the first thing I heard is that I'm selfishly doing this. Mm-hmm. So I just had to pull that word out and say, in every single way, I was going to say that there is nothing selfish about it. But what I want to ask you is, what is selfish about sitting here and allowing yourself to get a benefit.
Maybe I just feel like I don't deserve it, I guess.
Yeah.
Just, I'm just grateful.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting how we can take gratitude? I'm so grateful. And then at that same time, experience the thing that we're grateful for, that we're not worthy of it. And that's the reason for the gratitude. And gratitude is supernatural, isn't it? I mean, I've done it. So I'm just illuminating that. And I'm bringing it right in, because before you even share anything about your life and your story, we will be able to hear there's signs along the way, like breadcrumbs. And anything that we see in our lives around us, little words that we use, I'm always hearing words. Notice the language that you're using in your mind and your heart, and you will start to see the story that's generating inside, that's creating outcomes. So that's really what we're going to do. We're going to see your outcomes, which you've worked with me on that sort of stuff. So like, we're going to look at your family, all the things that are going on in your life. They only point to what's happening and what you're creating from the inside out, right? Yeah. So would you tell us what it is that you want most help with, like today? What is it that you feel like you need?
Well, I've been walking around very often the past couple of years, probably in reality, asking, like, what am I doing here? I have just always been somebody with visions and goals and dreams, and I dream big, and I get a lot of things done. I have a lot of fun. But past couple of years, after my mom passed away suddenly and unexpectedly 4.5 years ago, big trauma, COVID, big trauma, just business, big trauma, children leaving the nest, and I just don't know my place right now. Although I've helped many find theirs, I feel lost.
Yeah.
And I feel alone. And I am married. I don't really want to point the finger anymore at my husband. I just know I'm not okay.
When you describe yourself as not okay, could you use different language to describe that?
Mm-hmm. I'm sad a lot, scared, full of fear, insecurity. Just a lot of things I would call negative, or attacks of an enemy, and not the peace of God. I want that. Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions about that. Okay. And you just can feel free to just like cry and just be you. There's no right or wrong, here. So when you say afraid and sad, right? How would you describe like your fear? What do you feel afraid of?
Well, after I experienced a sudden death, I've experienced many deaths in my 60 years, but the sudden, unexpected death rocked my world. And I'm afraid of dying, although I believe that this is not my last life, and that I believe in eternal life. I'm very scared now of the how.
When you say the how, what do you mean? How you would die? Is that what you mean? Okay. Do you know how and when? Does it feel imminent? Does it feel imminent? Does it feel like it could happen at any moment? Is that what you're describing? Mm-hmm. Is it because, yes, you're scared of it being sudden? Mm-hmm. And so you had the experience with your mom, that being sudden, right? And that experience has translated into your belief about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And do you see it in other places? Do you feel afraid of other things?
Well, can I go back to that one?
Of course. Yes.
I feel it's contradictory, and this is where I struggle, because I have a lot of I thought I did. I thought I was a woman of a lot of faith. And I feel like I contradict it because I believe, one way. And then I asked God, can I please live to 105? And since God has answered so many of my prayers, I believe I'm going to. Well, that means I have 45 more years to contradict myself because I'm now afraid of dying because of what happened without a warning that just scared the out of me. And now I believe and I don't believe. And that's what I feel like. I learn and I want to learn and I want to unlearn and I want to grow and I want to ungrow. And everything is, that's how I feel, swimming in a sea of anxiety and depression.
Can I ask you, I want to just ask you, because we're going to talk about that, what we would call that is like one long emotional response. No, it really, it happens to us. It's almost like our muscles are spasming and we can't make them stop. And also I hear within the midst of what you're describing, you have to tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't know. It's just something I sense is like you're saying, I contradict myself. To me, we kind of come up believing somehow, even as a Christian, that we have to have like this linear, almost like this one way of believing. And I think we're so multifaceted that that's not possible. So you're having multiple experiences around faith and around what you believe. And everyone on this earth does not fully understand what death means because we just really don't fully know. We just know the things that we believe in and have experienced, right? So, what I do want to know is I would love to find out is how this sudden trauma, because it's a sudden shift in life, everything about your life when your mother died changed. Your world was different, right? So what I would like to ask you is, I'm imagining that is tethered to things historically, that your mother is symbolic, which all mothers are, right? The grounding to earth. She's your first home, so she has a lot of meaning. So that's one thing I'm going to ask you is like, what does your mother represent besides the traditional mother things? How did your mother protect you?
That's such a funny question. So I think I was more the mom.
There you go.
And my mother was an emotionally challenged woman, severely emotionally challenged, never diagnosed because never would see a doctor. But I was the mom, but I left home at 12 because I didn't want to be the mom.
And where did you go?
I grew up in Queens, New York. And
I don't mean like physically, like, did you, it's okay. It's okay.
The streets of New York. I took to the streets and I went to a crowd of people that I thought were going to love me. And they were friends of my age, 12 through 18. So there's a big shift in 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds. But I got connected to a crowd of a little older than myself, people on the streets of the city in Queens, and it became all sex, drugs, rock and roll. And I just wandered the streets and became a girlfriend to a boy who was 4.5 years older than me. So he was almost 18 and I was 13. And now looking back, there was stop.
No, I actually was just tagging that as a moment when you just said that was a boyfriend when you were 13 and he was 18. And I just thought that was interesting choice of words, right?
So that boyfriend became a husband of mine. So I really forgot your question and I really want to stay on track with you. So I want to be honest about that. Like, you could reel me back in because I feel like I'm going in a place that we
No, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something very, very important.
Okay.
Just so you know, this right here, what I'm doing, I I am not shy. I have no problem interrupting you, reeling you back in. Basically what just happened, and I'm gonna highlight what just happened, is that because I can hear a whole bunch of things in this. There is so much happening in what you just said, the small amount of things. So you just said that when you parted ways with your mother because you didn't want to take care of her any longer, you took to the streets, which is a very, very, very vulnerable and clearly unsafe place for a 12-year-old. Right. So now I am not going to presume that I know. One of the things about being on a podcast, if we were in a therapeutic situation and this was my first time having a conversation with you, I probably would not say what I'm going to say because I would help you process and go through it, which I'm going to partly. But part of this, when you hear that, what do you hear about that time that you left your mom? What do you hear?
Well, based on what I know happened, because it was very dark and the story gets way worse.
Yeah.
And the consequences I suffered are traumatic. So what do I feel now?
No, I want to ask you at that moment when you hear yourself describe that, because this is a I listen for this is a time, and there may be other times where you felt a separation from your mother, but this is one of the times you're telling me. So I'm looking at it, I'm observing to see you have a separation from your mother, and then you're describing a very, very vulnerable and unsafe experience as a very little girl. So, it's a very prime time in your life. So I want to ask you what your primary feeling was during that period of time. Do you know?
I would say a lot of the same feelings I probably feel right now.
Okay.
Scared, anxious, fearful, like I was definitely doing something wrong by leaving her.
What were you doing wrong?
I guess I feel like she needed me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she needed you and you were trying to find yourself or find freedom? Safety.
Because the dad who was present wasn't safe for me either.
Would you like to say how he wasn't safe, love?
He just was he was a gambler. He was charismatic. Everybody loved him. But I don't know if like 8-year-old girls are supposed to be rolling dice on a crap table in Vegas and going to horse tracks and race tracks and making wages. And I would felt like more like his wife.
Yes. And how were you like his wife? Were you there to make him did you create the fun?
You know, I have a lot of his personality. So like, I think I relate to him and we related to each other somehow, even though I was very young. But then, you know, we did relate well, but then we didn't.
Okay.
And then it was just so messy.
You know, what I want to say to you is that as we're looking at all of these things, it probably feels really like cloudy in your mind, like so much information and so much stuff. But from me on the outside, as I'm experiencing it, all I just see is solution, solution, solution. That's all I see. All I see is one thing after another that can be picked up, held, wiped off, cared for, and put back in your life in a different way. So even though on the way out, as you're discussing it and trying to describe it, it feels probably messy, dirty, shameful, possibly, and probably crowded, I would imagine.
Very shameful because the darkness that came out of that relationship in a teenager, just the multitudes of sin and devastation are just, they weren't, when I look at 13, 14, 15, 20-year-old, you know, I married him at 18, divorced at 20. I look at women that age now or young girls and I'm like, I cannot even fathom.
Well, can you look at yourself when you look at yourself 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and you describe it as sin? Well, how would you describe what you experienced over those years? Those were very formative years. It was that's the stage of development, identity versus role confusion. So I just want to, find out what, that's what teenagers are doing. They're looking to individuate and find who they are. You're saying to me, I don't know what I'm doing here. You're also saying I'm afraid. You're describing a similar situation, not similar. You're describing a situation where you separated from your mom, right? And so let's look at, so what is it when you describe this man who was your husband, 13 to 18 and a half, right? How is this? Just, you want to describe it or no?
Like, how is the relationship?
What made it dark? What hurt?
Yeah. I mean, I have no problem admitting my truths of that time. It's not who I am. I guess I feel bad for how people might receive it.
Can I just, before you say anything about it, we have to just talk about that for a minute.
Me and you?
Yes, me and you.
Like me and you. Camera?
No, on camera.
Oh, on camera.
Okay, so my question is, this is why I'm saying before you say it, what do you think I'm hearing about your perspective of this little girl?
That you feel bad for her?
Well, I do, but I'm wondering what your perspective is of her. If we put that up on a screen.
Gotcha.
Do you hear how you're describing her?
Mm-hmm. I would say she was very abused.
Yes.
By somebody who sexually abused her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because I didn't learn about birth control, I suffered consequences of just a lot of things I wouldn't do today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was multiple abortions, laying awake at 13 years old, not really knowing what was happening to me.
When you had an abortion, you mean, at 13?
13, 14, 15,
14?
16. Still with him.
Yeah.
Then married him at 18.
Yeah.
My parents tried to get me away from him. They tried to love me, but I didn't receive anything that they were offering as love.
Yes.
And then when I married him, I eloped, and the crazies got crazier. And then at 20, I packed a suitcase and went home to my parents, who then lived on Long Island. So after leaving at 12, I ended up back there at 20.
Yeah.
And then tried to piece my life together again.
Yeah. Do you remember so when you make that face that you just made, what does it feel like to say that part out loud? Like, you made a face that seems like self-criticism, but I don't know if that's what that was.
Kind of feels like where I'm at right now again.
Yeah. In what way, hon?
Just, I guess, just all feels like so much.
I'll tell you, when you say it feels like so much, does it feel like it's so much, meaning like it can't get cleared out or you can't feel better? Does it feel that big? Is that what you mean?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get confused at what I'm feeling.
Yeah, of course. That's so normal. Do you know that? It's so normal. Yeah. Some of
grace, I know that, but when I'm like, hey, Karen, 30, 40 years of counseling and group life, and this stuff, you've got this, like, let's go, awake, aware. And then now, I came into your world a couple of years ago, I live it out. I listen, I try to apply, and I've done a lot of work on this little girl. And, one of my favorite scriptures that I came upon told me, little girl, get up. And he talks to a 12-year-old girl and he says, get up. And I just take such great pride in the fact that even though I endured so much, that I am getting up. I just don't know what I'm doing here.
What's so beautiful about what you're saying, there's so many layers to what you're saying, but the whole, when I talk about being awake and aware in the now without judgment and in a state of peace, what Karen's talking about is shifting from a thought that we have into a better thought and a better feeling and creating a new life. And that's all true. That's something that we all need to do. But then we have this incredibly traumatic experience that is an ongoing traumatic experience. It's not one experience. It's not one 13-year-old. It's not one moment of a 13-year-old being sexually abused by an 18-year-old. It is years and years and years of confusion and development, right? So what we're talking about, to me, when I say those words, I'm not saying it meaning, oh, this is bigger because it's years. I'm just saying that what I do here, and I want you to correct me if I'm inaccurate, is that I hear, even when I look at your facial expressions, I see, even though you're saying she's abused, I see a relationship with her that you have that is less than love.
Probably true.
Yes. So in order to ever heal, we have these stages in life. So at 12 years old, when you walk out of your house and you're in the street, this is a moment in time where you're in survival mode. Would you say that's true?
100%.
So when we go into survival mode, we usually split off from the part of us, the emotional part of us, which I'm sure you had to split off before, and which we can do that. But even just at that one point, you have to split off from that 12-year-old girl, and you had to not allow her to communicate, express emotion, or do the things that she might have been feeling that she would have naturally felt, right? Would that make sense? Mm-hmm. So did you split off from fear, even if you felt it? Like, did you tough it out?
Well, I probably
drugged it out.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
I drugged it out. I sexed it out, drugged it out.
Yeah.
Rock and rolled it out.
Yeah. Drown the shit out. Yeah.
All over
but
the place.
You know what that is? That's like basically that ultimately right there is the abandonment of self. So at all different stages of life, which you probably know, because we've probably talked about it before, but the different stages of life, we can abandon ourselves at 4 years old. So like, let's say a baby is crying. Let's say you're 4 years old and you're crying, but you know that your mother needs you more than you need her, or you believe that. So now what you need to do is you need to go and you need to split off and not feel the crying and not be in need and not express what's really happening. And you need to leave and abandon 4-year-old Karen and become something that will survive well in that home. So that 4-year-old Karen remains crying inside and she does not emotionally develop. And then everything grows around you because you're a survivor. You're usually this is very typical. So somebody who's a survivor of very extreme things, they can either become just a total, somebody who's non-functioning, or they become way, way over-functioning. You learned how to be self-sufficient, right? You could run all sorts of shit, right? You could do anything. It's okay. That's the point. That's the whole point. This right here is your pinnacle. What you're doing right now is right on time. There is nothing that's happening in your life right now that is not meant to be happening, because you've built a life of success in all these different ways, except that cognitive, emotional experience where you are connected with the little 4-year-old can grow up. The 13-year-old can be 13. Yeah. And you connect with her. So is anything that I'm saying resonating with you? And feel free, whatever doesn't, say so.
Oh, completely resonating.
Could you say like how?
I just know that what I'm hearing you say, although I might not be able to repeat it, I just feel like there's a lot of freedom in that. I don't know. I just feel a sense of an exhale or something coming.
Yes.
Like some kind of a release that, that it's going to be okay.
It
Even if
is.
it's not okay.
You know what? All we do is freedom. That's it. It's for freedom that we are set free. So basically, what I want you to know, if you really think about it, if we threw your life on a screen, you and I, a big, big screen, and we just went and we just watched it from birth to, I don't know, 18. And you were honest and you observed this little girl in different scenarios. Honest may not even be your first thought, because I think you've been lying to yourself for years. We all do. So it's not a criticism. We all do that for survival purposes. So if you were to watch her, let's pick an age, a younger age than 12. Could you describe what made you leave at 12 in order to not take care of your mom? What did you have to do to take care of her?
I was her person. My father was gone at the racetrack or doing his thing. And there was just remember a lot of lying and a lot of, I don't know, like just extreme emotional sways. And
with your mom?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt very unsafe.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did.
I don't really remember. Like I have tried a lot of different
things
to remember. I just know I was very uncomfortable next to her.
Yes.
And the feeling that I had next to her up until her death, even though our relationship changed greatly over the years in so many ways, I never felt comfortable next to her.
I got it.
And I never could look at her and feel comfortable, and her anxieties and her mental condition were I could feel it. As if it were me.
Yes.
I still feel it in her death.
Yes.
And I often think, am I her?
Yeah. I was wondering if you felt that. Okay.
I look in the mirror now, I feel like I'm so far from her.
Yeah.
But I feel unworthy during those years. I don't know if this was your question, but
it's okay.
Up to 12 or around those ages, like really, really feeling invisible, unworthy. Like I just didn't matter. What I thought didn't matter. Yes. What I wanted to do didn't matter. And I didn't want to do what they were doing.
What were they doing?
Whatever they were doing, even if it looked good, like going to restaurants and going out and going to Vegas and going to the racetrack and, just having fun that way, or being home in quiet. I'm very uncomfortable in my quiet home right now because of what happened back
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Quietness, I'm not okay in quietness. I'm not okay if my husband's reading the paper like my dad used to do. And
yes. Yes.
I want to scream.
Yes.
Like very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. You know what all that means?
No.
The fact that you can see it, right? It's easy for me as an outside person to see that I know that you can get better and you can move from those experiences, the fact that you already know them. So you're able to tie together that, I'm having this emotional response that's a historical response, right? Because we become addicted to the feelings that we feel the most. So if when we're very little, we repeatedly feel something, right? But there's a lot more to what you were saying when you were a little girl, and you were describing being in this feeling uncomfortable with being next to your mother, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now, what I do find when people can't look at people and they can't feel comfort being next to someone, sometimes there's something that's happening is that when you look at that person, or you, let's say you join them in what they're in, if that makes sense, like you interact with them, there's a part of us that feels like we're lying. So does that make sense?
Well, I am experiencing those same feelings again right now with my current husband. So
Yeah.
I'm really listening to you right now because, like, of course, who couldn't talk to you for hours and days, but like the same feeling of like, I can't look at him and connect to him
Mm-hmm.
and feel safe.
Yes.
So that's why I took a little hiatus from a lot of things recently, because I feel on very shaky ground.
Yeah. You know what, Karen, right now, you are on shaky ground because you're experiencing like that one long emotional response. You're returning to something to heal it, which is very, very difficult if you don't know it's happening, especially being in personal development in your whole life. And, but to understand that if we could imagine we're going back to retrieve little Karen. So in order to do that, she has to be able to feel up. She has to be able to be expressing and present. And that's what she sounds like she is. She sounds like she's here. And how would we ever help her? I always say nothing changes until it becomes what it is. Well, if you can identify that what you're experiencing right now is what that was, right? Doesn't the cast of characters changes? We don't. What are you thinking?
Well, a few times since we started talking about this dark time, I recall that my mother, when I was 12, she didn't know where I was one day, and I was out at a boy's house. He was playing guitar, and we were just innocently listening to him play guitar. And she found me at this boy's house, and she called me out of the house, and she put me in her car, and I was 12, and I remember, and she's just automatically labeled me, and I apologize for using the word.
No, use it.
It's whore. She just said, you are a whore.
What was this that you just did? You circled around your head. What does that mean?
That's what I went out and did.
Yes, she told you what to do. Yeah, because it's an identity thing. You are this. And then, yes. Is that when you left? Yes. So basically, then you played out that story, right? And I know you know the right answer. I don't want the right answer. I don't care how right or I just want your real answer. And maybe even on this podcast, you won't say the real answer, but you're going to know it soon. When you look at that girl, how do you identify her? Go deep in your heart. When you look at her and you know the things that she had to bear that you say you would never do now. As soon as I hear that, I hear shame. I would never do that now because what do you feel about her, even though logically we know it's not her fault?
That she should have known better.
Okay.
That there were other choices.
Mm-hmm.
That why did I leave? Who told me that that's what I had to do? Was it so bad? There's so much that I ask myself, but like it's over, I say, but when I look at her, she was so lonely and so alone. And so.
Is she here now?
Yeah.
I mean, everything you're saying is her. And, what I do hear very, very loud and clear is a disconnect, a lack of love between you and her. And the only context that anyone can grow in, especially a child, is in love and acceptance. And when we have to abandon ourselves, we typically do it with like, be quiet. We have to leave that part because that part is not going to follow the rules of survival. So now this little girl, if she just remains a little girl, what's going to happen to her? Could you tell me? What would have happened to her?
She'd be dead.
Okay. So now, when you're saying she should have known better, this is your relationship. You know, you and I can sit together as adult women and we can talk about a 13-year-old girl, and both of us know that it's not her fault. We're logic. I mean, we know that. You would never feel that way about any other person. So that's not the issue. I'm not going to say that to you. We already know that. What really has to happen is this internal, that's the bitter underneath truth. That's what we're going for. That's what makes people better. Yes, ma'am.
I feel a need to protect the him in the story more than
Okay.
a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm like thinking, well, if he were to hear this, he'd be like, I was a young kid. I didn't know any better myself.
The 18-year-old boy? Yeah, no, I get that.
And so I'm just feeling like, I don't know if that's guilt, shame, I don't know what that's doing, but inside my spirit right now, I just feel like I want to cover it for his sake.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to say about that is that I understand that, because also as two adult women, when we look at an 18-year-old boy who's probably so troubled himself, the real issue with abuse is a much more systemic issue, spiritual issue, larger macro issue than the individuals involved. So this young man who probably believed that he was with, you know, a girl that felt like his peer, I'm assuming. I don't know what he felt. And honestly, whatever he felt, our conversation really has very little to do with him. Because the truth is that your experience was abuse. Was it intentional abuse? I mean, I could never say that. What I would say is that the experience was that you were, because of everything that you learned about yourself and the way you felt about yourself. And it was abuse by you. It was abuse by circumstance. It was abuse by, you know, I wrote one little thing in my book and I just never forgot it, is that when there's no adult around, crisis tends to happen. You know, no real adult. And it's just the bottom line. If you're a 12-year-old girl, an 8-year-old girl, and you're just on your own, shit happens. Guys go after you. You get abused. It's a thing. And I experienced it too. This is real. And we're not about blaming anyone. We're about fixing you and helping, not even fixing you, because you're not broken. You're not. Do you know that? I know, because, yeah.
I feel completely broken.
Could you tell us?
Yeah, a lot of the feelings back then are the same now.
Yeah.
And in this season of my life, I feel pretty much like that.
Yeah. So you know what's really beautiful and incredibly, I know you don't. I know. I'm going to tell you an incredible thing. Have you ever given this girl a voice?
I guess I feel like I am, as I'm vulnerable, truthful with people, share my story.
Well, when you share your story, right, does she get to share it?
I don't know.
So the way that she would share it could be something like this, and you could tell me if I'm not accurate, but like, you know, it may not be the facts of the story. It may not be, oh, you know, this happened. It would be, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. I'm all alone. I can't, why am I here? What do I do? Who do I go to? There's no one to help me. I'm scared to death. I'm going to die. You know, something could suddenly happen, you know, all of this. And like, and what's going to happen to my mother? What did you think would happen to your mother? Did you think about that at all or no?
Growing up, like what did
Yeah,
I
like
do
when you left,
when
you
I
felt guilty. What did you think would happen?
You know what? It was so quick from the leave to the drug inducement that I don't think I allowed myself to really dwell in what was going to happen to her. It was more
Right.
like, what am I going to do? It was so odd. I was just remembering how my parents would leave the front door open for me to come in, because I would leave and just wander through sometimes
Streets.
and just come to shower and change. And I was like, that's so odd. You know, it's just so odd.
So you could like walk around in the street and stuff by yourself at night. Is that what you mean or no?
That I could just go in and out
Yeah.
of their home and not talk to them. There were no words exchanged for years. I would go in and out, and it just I feel the little girl feels to me like she's very scared, and I still am.
Of course you are.
I've worked hard.
Uh-huh. Could you tell us how? How did you work hard? What were you doing?
I've gone to like as far as counsel, and what have I done?
No, yeah, I don't mean it in a way like we're like measuring it, like was it good or not? I just mean like what did you do with this little girl is what I want to know.
I tried to get her help.
Yeah. And so would this fear and all of this stuff that you're sharing right now, would that be out discussed and shared and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you remember it feeling this way?
Feeling this way then, or
Yeah, then. Yeah. Like
this way then? Oh
yeah.
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 This feels just like that.
Yeah. So
But I didn't really connect that until this talk.
Mm-hmm. The connection between the feelings that you're having now and this kind of like not feeling okay, as you described it, you didn't connect it to that's her feeling that.
Well, I can't say that I didn't at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I do believe all of my past experiences have brought me to who I am, and
Yeah.
I choose to live in the now and, get up and do life because I love it. But I forgot the question.
It's okay. I think I did too. Okay. So basically, like suppose it's okay. This is good. Listen, I'm able, even though you feel all that you're feeling, I can tell.
Familiar. It's very familiar.
Yes.
This is all very familiar now.
Yeah. Yeah. So isn't it lovely? Easy for me to say, isn't it lovely that this little girl, that you've built a life of enough strength, enough foundational pieces that now she can come out and she doesn't have to, she can come out and not be afraid to do what she's doing right now, even though you feel horrible. Can you see that? Do you know what I mean by that?
Freedom.
Well, what it is, it's very interesting, is that we can work on a lot of things. I've done that. So I've worked for years since I'm young, probably 19, just always working on myself and the different traumas I've had. But what I learned is the stronger I became, the more foundational pieces were put in place, the more vulnerable parts could come up because it's a safer environment. So even though you may feel like you're going to die, you may feel terrorized, you are safer now. She's safe with you. Does that make sense?
Well, I think I'm very hyper aware somehow, even though I'm not consciously aware of what is happening until maybe now. I'm very aware somehow that she needs to be protected or something's going on in my current life right now because I'm feeling very similar and acting very much the same as I did. I say she, it was me. It gets a little confusing. It's me.
Yes.
Okay. Like she lives here in my heart. That's one part. I am definitely 12 right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
60 and 12.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of that because we have to go back. We don't have to. It's an opportunity to go back and then give her the opportunity to emotionally develop through this pain, which it doesn't take all the years. It really is an actually rather, it's not a long process. It's a repeated experience of acceptance that it was terrorized as she should have been. Do you agree that she should have been terrorized?
By whom?
I wouldn't even project, I wouldn't even say who, because it's her internal world. Where was their safety from the time she was born?
Yes, I should have been terrorized.
Yes, because if you don't have a sense of groundedness or safety when you're developing, that's part of your programming, right?
Right.
So that, so the thing that we talk about, like, that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write. It's those who cannot learn, unlearn, and learn again, right? And I think about the scripture, do not be conformed to this world. So I don't think of the scripture in the same way. I'm sure it has many meanings, which of course, because it's so layered, but do not be conformed to this world. We must think about the world that have been conformed to. And what was that world?
What was the world back then that I was conformed to?
Well, any 0 to 7, we're in a theta brainwave. And during that period of time, we're being programmed. So we're conforming to the world that we're born into. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I was born into a world of chaos, lies, everything that I just don't stand for today. But it seems like my whole world is chaotic right now.
But it's interesting when you grow up and you see that that's the world that you're born into. That becomes our vision, our mindset. That's what Einstein says we have to decide whether we're born into a hostile or a friendly world. It's a key.
I was born into a hostile world.
Yes, you were.
Yes.
So what happens then to our perspective on everything?
I would assume we go guarded into life.
Yeah. Have you been guarded in life?
100%.
Yes. And that if we feel that we have to guard, then we're never calm. No. We're in survival mode.
I'm not ever calm. I have had seasons of calm. I go places that bring me calm. I'm very good at the self-care part, but I'm not good at the significance part.
Well, it's interesting because I'm such a words person. When I think about the word self-care, I'm thinking that the way that you're using it is externally, that you go places, maybe you do things for yourself. And to me, that's an external solution to an internal problem. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It's great that you do it, but I think this requires much more love. Standing still. You took a deep breath when I said that.
It kind of was validation because I've taken a time out from some things and people, and I feel guilty about it because a lot of my friends, I've heard through friends or other people who are talking about me, I guess, that Karen's different, or, and Karen is different because I'm not trying to figure out what am I doing here.
It's if we just look at parallel experiences, and never ever, if I say to you something and it doesn't resonate with you, you just say, Alison, that doesn't resonate. Okay, please. So basically, when I'm hearing this, I hear a parallel type of experience that here you are, this caregiver, this lover of people, helping people change and grow and doing all the things you do, right? Because when people who are in pain and who've been through hard times are great at that. However, now I hear, then that's what you did with your mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you leave your mom, and then you shut down all of those feelings related to leaving your mom. But Now you leave your friends. I'm just wondering what you imagine your mom and dad were saying about you when you left.
That probably I was out of my mind. And
Okay.
this boy had tremendous influence over my decisions, and they pointed the finger to him,
Yeah.
not to self. I'm sure they thought they did the best they could, and I just for some reason had a vision of the middle and end of our stories. And there's, of course, there's just so much more, right, that transpired between me and my mom and my dad. And the story ended so differently than the way it's being portrayed right now. So it gets a little confusing in here. Again, a lot confusing, Alison.
Yeah. But remember,
I track because I get like swayed by like the waves,
yeah.
like I feel pulled out. I don't know what that's why I took a time out. That's why I have to, not that I don't care about my loved ones and what they're thinking about me right now. They might see it as like a shutdown, and I feel a need to defend it, in case anybody like watches and you actually put this on and they don't know yet that Karen's even suffering or feeling such things. I need to get okay. And I believe that the few people that I let in, it's enough.
It's so enough.
And now it's enough. Like there's 5 people that know, like 4 kids and 1 friend. And I'm sorry. Like, I feel like I need to say, I'm sorry to everybody else.
So if you say you're sorry, could you say a couple of sentences, what you would say to them? I'm sorry because?
I'm sorry that you that know me as a truth teller and somebody that you call friend, you might perceive it as omission and lies, and I perceive it as a life preserver right now.
So you're saying, I'm sorry to you because?
Sorry to you because I'm not being honest when you ask me how I am.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry to you if I haven't talked to you as much over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And when I don't talk to you, and when I don't call you and I don't talk to you over the years, I'm sorry. What do you believe that does? What is that? Not talking to them.
I'm not okay. So I don't want to.
But what would you say? What would you say to them? I'm going to tell you something. You ready? Ready for this? You're okay. And you're going to be okay.
Thanks.
You hear me? You're doing exactly what you should be doing, by the way.
Thanks.
You're going back instead of living on a I don't know what we would call it. Half measures avail us nothing. Talks about that in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Basically, we can do half measures. Most people do. I'm good enough. I've created this life. There's a lot more for you. You can be a helper to everyone and have this low grade, low level, chronic, long-term survival mechanism that you're living in and you don't even know it. Hypervigilant, right? I'm sure you're hypervigilant.
Very much so.
Wouldn't it be lovely?
I don't think I've slept in 4 years very well. Like I'm tired.
Honey, it would be negligent and completely not a good friendship to not do what you're doing. To show up as our very best self is the best way to show up for anyone. And you're modeling for human beings the way to handle severe lifelong trauma. That's what you're doing. So you left them. Is that it?
Yeah.
You left them. And what? You feel sorry? Sorry for leaving them? What do you think that resonates with you in your heart, that you feel so badly for leaving people? Could you tell me what's wrong with that?
I don't know.
Did that feeling that you feel right now, what do you think? Have you felt this feeling before? Being this sorry? What was that feeling?
I think I'm always sorry.
Yes. How long have you been sorry?
Too long.
Yeah. When we have a mom that's not well and a parent who's not well, and, gambling, by the way, is, there's an epidemic of gambling. But the thing about gambling as an addiction is people don't know this. It is one of the most damaging addictions to families. People are not that much aware of what gambling does. But now your mom, you leave, you're leaving to survive. You leave home to survive. Is that how you left your friends?
Probably.
I mean, isn't that what you're doing now?
Honesty, like, I guess
Yeah.
if I'm very honest.
Yeah.
I just feel like I just don't care.
I feel bad. Right on.
I feel
I love it.
Okay. I watched one of your podcasts with Emily Frisella, I think it is.
Oh, Emily. Yeah. She's great.
Her big circle, something to this effect, her big circle. And I have big circles. God blessed me with friendships that are incredible.
Yes.
I have many, many. But the circle, she said, it's more like a triangle now. She's okay with that. And and I'm like,
yes.
Don't beat yourself up, Karen. It's a season. It's okay. Nobody's even thinking about you as much as you're thinking about them. It's really okay. Let it go.
So if we let that part of you speak, that's so scared to let it go, it's so scared to walk away from them for no matter how long, because what does it mean? What they think means something.
What does it mean to them?
To you.
Or what does it mean to me? I guess like I'm just abandoned ship.
Are you familiar with being abandoned? Is that your whole life? Do you think that you avoid doing that to others because you know the feeling?
I'm actually thinking about it. I'm pretty good at it. And I probably hurt a lot of people a lot of time. I hear a lot of it. I don't know, thinking about this, people that just would love to hear from me and I just don't call. And, why don't I call? I just don't want to. I don't know. I don't know. I'm in a very confused state.
Do you think that you need to have a confused state or a problem to not call?
No.
I know. Yeah. You know that. Yeah. So let's go to the heart of those feelings. Could you tell me what you're feeling now?
A little uncomfortable.
Okay. I could tell something shifted. What is it? What's the discomfort, if you could put words to it?
As it applies to my friends, I feel like, I guess the best example I could say, and even if they watch this and don't know, as an example, we were invited to go be all together, my good friends, my sisters, New Year's Eve, and I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like, I know some people that are very close to me that would love to just talk to me. How you doing? I'm not interested right now.
Yeah.
And I feel very bad, like a bad person, bad Karen.
Yeah.
And I don't sleep.
And when you
I'm
say you don't,
wondering what everybody's thinking and how everybody's doing, and
what are you supposed to be doing for them?
Being the good friend that I've always been.
And what is that?
A good listener, there for them.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, Alison, because in truth, and I hope that they don't get mad at me, some of them when they watch this,
it's okay.
Sometimes I go doesn't anybody want to know how I'm doing? Doesn't anybody want to ask, hey, how are you doing? They know that I suffer from anxiety, and they know Karen might not be okay due to the silence. Why don't you reach out? Or did you reach out and I didn't reach back? And you're just, I play over these things.
Yes.
And they're not even thinking about.
Yes. If you listen and you hear what you're saying, right? the thing is that how much of what all you're trying to do is to be with Karen and to get clarity. That's it, right? But how long have there been so many voices or interruptions, white noise of what everybody needs or thinks or their perspective of you? How much does that distract or influence your life?
Too much.
Yeah. So, are you willing to give yourself permission? Let's say they all just didn't like you because you are no longer, you have not been able to be this, I don't know, I don't even know if I would call that a good friend, actually, someone who's just always the listener or whatever. I mean, we identify it as that, but I think,
excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'd like to think that they think that I'm also a lot of fun, and
no,
Karen's just gone.
no,
Karen's gone. You know, she's just
yes,
gone. I'm
yes.
gone. That's what I did. I kind of just left.
Okay, you know that's what you did when you were 12, right?
Right.
To survive.
Yes.
Yeah. So right now, we're there.
Survival mode.